So hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Let's take a look here. We got some new fun stuff here on the show too. So hello, Mom. Hello, Brad, Rob, Corey, Daniel, Gerald. Good to see you all. Andrew, Daniel. Oh my goodness, so many of you. It's Rob. I cannot fix. Well, I can fix the fact that you can see and hear me. I could put the cover back up, but I won't do that. Let's see here. Just looking over, horror immersion experiences, exactly. You're hearing me walk around the house without getting started. So good to see y'all. Let's get into it this week, and let's talk about the coffee that we're drinking, and that is Lavazza Coffee's Kilimanjaro, and this is the last time. No, Daniel, you're not my mom. You're not my real mom. You're my Kickstarter mom. My real mom is here as well, and it's so good to see her. Hello, Courtney, my beautiful wife, and my son, Harrison. Hello, Harrison. Good to see you, buddy. Thomas Grogan, thank you very much. I was on Board Game Breakfast today. That's right. This morning I was on Board Game Breakfast with Jen Bartlett, my good friend, and we did a small bit at the library in Connecticut, in Manchester, to talk about what it means to go out and play with your community and to hear about what kind of games they like and things like that. And yeah, it's very important to me to get out and play with the community. I'll be honest, I've been going a little bit crazy because I've been stuck here at the house with, wife and baby, and we've been loving our time together. But I have usually, in the past, been able to go out 1 to 2 times a week to play test or play other games. And I've almost gone out not at all other than events like Saturday when I went to Connecticut. So it was really a refreshing day of playing games. We played Record and Son of a Bee, our upcoming tile laying game. That's a really fun one that we're showing off at CT Fig in a couple weekends, actually, at Connecticut Connecticon. So I'm really looking forward to that one as well. Yeah, Jen Bartlett, the big Twitter person. Yeah, it was a really, really fun board game breakfast. I had a blast. It was a quick little segment after we'd been playing board games all day with different people from Connecticut. And I ran into Gary Pope from Late to the Table. He actually tracked me down and said, "Hey, I heard you said you were going to make a response video." And I haven't done that yet because I've been so busy. But I do plan on making a little video about how to take care of your board games at some point in the near future. Time for some caffeine. I agree. So this is Lavazza Coffee, and this is the last week we will ever have Lavazza on the show. Unless somebody sends it to me, I won't throw gifts in the trash. But I just found out after a little bit of research that while I thought Lavazza was a fair trade company and they were at least part of the Rainforest Alliance, it turns out only one of their coffees is part of the Rainforest Alliance. One out of 40 of their coffees, only one is part of the Rainforest Alliance, and the rest are just sourced from wherever. So I'm trying my best to be supportive of ethical coffee standards. I'd also like to try some more local places. There's a place here in Rhode Island called the Coffee Exchange that I'd like to go to and maybe get some of the higher end different coffees. I don't know. I'm going to try some different things, but I'm going to try and stay away from anything that's not fair trade or at least part of the Rainforest Alliance. What that means is just sustainability and paying a certain price that is fair to the farmers. I think that's super important, considering that it's a luxury to drink coffee for me. So, all right. On past. The Lavazza is good, though. This is a fruity sort of, you can definitely taste a lighter fruity blend. Excuse me, a lighter fruity blend in there. It's not nearly as dark as most of their other, it's if you've never had Lavazza, most of their blends are super dark or very, very fine ground, so it's an espresso ground almost always. So it generally makes a good, dark, thick cup of coffee. But I'm learning more and more. I'm actually learning some more things about coffee as people watch the show and contact me and say, "Hey, have you watched this? Have you seen this?" So one of the things I'm learning is that actually super darkly roasted coffee masks the flavors, and the lightly roasted coffee actually gives you better flavors. So I'm starting to try and learn that a little bit. Let's see here. Brad says video keeps cutting out for you, not long, just an issue. It may just be bandwidth. I will repost today, so feel free to ask questions or anything like that, and I will repost on YouTube and Facebook here on the Anaguana page. Let's see here. Rob says Gary is the man. I agree. I had a blast. I had dinner with Gary and Jen and Jen's husband, and we had an absolute blast just talking about all sorts of things. Let's see here. Is Starbucks Rainforest Alliance? I do not think so. You'd have to look into that directly. I don't know Starbucks sustainability. I don't like their coffee a whole lot, so I haven't really researched that. I should. So Stephanie says New Harvest. That's one of the places on my list as well. Thank you. And hello, Stephanie. Good to see you. So are you still working on that coffee game? Andrew, I am slowly. I actually just made the first update in ages to it, and I need to contact my co-designer, Dave Beaver, who I know is going to, I think, Gen Con or Dice Tower Con. One of the two. I don't remember. So I think he can probably do that. So my mom says your dad only drank Folgers since his granddad sold it. Yeah, that's. I mean, so my great grandfather sold Folgers. I have a very, very small memory of that story. However, it turns out Folgers is the dried out regular. It's very consistent coffee, but it is just dry when you get it. It's so. It's most filter coffee or commercial grade coffee apparently has a certain process versus there's higher end coffees. I was not aware of this. I'll try them. It may turn out that I actually enjoy these sort of commercial coffees as well. So we'll see. Ian, hello. Good to see you. Mom, that's really, really cool though to hear that's why Dad did it was because he specifically drank what his dad sold, or his granddad sold. That would be my great granddad, by the way. A lot of people can't drink coffee and don't, and that's fine. Tea is great, or any beverage that is honestly tasty to you. But coffee is just one that I really enjoy, and fun thing to put the sort of story around. So, or the talks each week around is a new cup of coffee. So I thought that would be a fun way to do things. So let's get into it this week. We've got a new sort of thing, which I found to be kind of fun. So this week the games we're going to talk about are. So games with like simple themes that have complex mechanisms when you really get into them. And the first one I'm going to do is the digital one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring up our new fancy Monday Mug mentioned screen. Hey, John, good to see you. We've just been talking about coffee a little bit, and you can always catch the recap on YouTube or later on Facebook on the repost on the Iguana page. So this is our new fancy screen, and you'll see I'm going to go ahead and start the video for the game that we're talking about this week on the digital side, and that is Stardew Valley, which came out in 2016, made by Concerned Ape. Concerned Ape is a solo developer. It's essentially one person who made this entire game by themselves. It was published by another outlet, and they've had some help in that the publishers helped them facilitate the game. But Concerned Ape is a single person that made Stardew Valley all on their own, which is an incredible feat. If you've never played the game, it's a game where you inherit a farm from one of your grandparents, and you essentially start out with an old rundown farmhouse. You have to plant some crops and then sell the crops. You have to make friends with the people in the town. It's much like Animal Crossing, if you've ever played an Animal Crossing game, but for the PC, which had never been done before at the time that this came out. So Stardew Valley is very interesting in that it's saying, okay, we're just this quaint little farming game. When the reality of the situation is it is one of the most complex games you will play with a very cute shell. And so what I mean by that is it's not a game about farming I would say it's not a game about farming exclusively, but it's almost not about farming at all. It's about progressing through seasons and understanding what each season does. So in the winter, you pretty much cannot grow crops. You've got to prepare throughout 3 seasons to be ready to play and be ready to sort of, go out and find out what's going on in the world, as well as go mining deep in a mine or go, get new animals to put into your pastures, fill up your silo. And this is all things that you have to buy over the purchase, over the time of just farming and sort of having this sort of agricultural lifestyle. Each game is played in the series of a day. A day takes about 10 to 12 minutes to play, depending on how late you stay up that day. If you become exhausted, you will just pass out and fall down, and you'll be done. Brad says Ape, one person, and appears to be concerned, very much so, Concerned Ape. Corey says, my wife and kids love that game on PS4. It's a fantastic game. It really is. Rob says, love Stardew. It's one of B's favorite games. It's one of my favorite games. I spent a lot of time on it initially. This is a new start because I logged into my old game and realized I had no idea what I was doing or what was going on. And that's one of the problems with these progression games is if you take months at a time off, or even a year, I think a couple years potentially since I last played Stardew Valley on the PC, um, and you log back into massive inventories of different, goods and farming goods and different fish and all the things you can do in the game, and you have so much stuff you don't even know where to start, it sometimes feels easier to start over because of the complexity of the game. And that's what got me thinking on down this train is that you cannot, it's very hard. Like my other game, there's, tens of thousands of dollars in the bank account and all these sorts of things from farming, but I was just so lost when I logged in. I didn't know what all these different items, why I had been saving them. There was hundreds of chests in my house with all these different stored things, and I was kind of going, looks like a crazy person's house. If you were, really looking at it, this is just, he's storing tons of different fish and flowers, and, it's a really, really crazy, crazy thing. But I was lost. I didn't know what my next objective even was at that point when I logged into this game, and I kind of puttered around a little bit, and I said, you know what, I've got to restart this from the beginning just to remind myself of how this game progresses and how it works. And it's a very slow, calm progression, and I think that's why it works in this shell of being, very, very nice and sort of just a nice clean shell, is that it's slow paced, but it's incredibly complex. You've got to maintain relationships with up to 27 different people in the town. You've got, to farm goods based on season. If you have something that you plant 7 days, and it's a 7-day harvest, and it's 4 days left in the season, it's going to die moving into the next season, and you've just wasted that money. There's an incredible amount of planning that's necessary, both in the farming and the social aspects and all those sorts of things. When you go into town, the social aspects include things like giving people gifts on their birthday. So you have to go over to a calendar, check to see, their birthday's coming up, and I've given them this or that for a gift before, and they liked this, they didn't like that. So for their birthday, I need to find something that would be similar to what they liked and give that to them. This is all done, as you can see, in a nice pixelated little shell. And you're walking around a quaint little town that reminds you of like Final Fantasy or old games on the NES even. I was immediately drawn to the farming aspect. I always like games about farming. I love the idea of planting a few crops, taking them out of the ground, selling them, and then, putting more in, repeating and growing that farm. I've always enjoyed that as a mechanism in a game of like an engine building farm sort of thing. I was very interested to find out that Stardew is much more than that very quickly into my first play. This second play, I realized how engaging it is. I want to play one more day. Almost like Civ is like, I want to play one more turn. This is like, I just want to play one more day. I'll sleep, I'll get up, I'll do this one more time, and then I'll go to bed in real life. And it's a really interesting, compelling, fun sort of process to run through and do all these things. And you can see there's an ocean where you can go scavenge for things. There's so many things you can do, including fishing, which I find that very fun, and to, if you're listening to a podcast or something like that, to fish in a game like this is very relaxing and not super high thought process. However, if you watch the little fishing mini game that goes on right over here, it's not easy. It can be pretty brutal. It'll give you just things like seaweed like it did there, but in a moment you have to sort of keep up with exactly where the slider on the fishing things is. So what Stardew Valley also does is incorporate a lot of little mini games into the bigger game, and I think that that's a really clever way to keep people engaged and keep things fresh. But these aren't incredibly intrusive. They don't make you feel like if you mess them up you would never be able to learn how to do them again. So if you look at the fishing thing, you've got to keep your bobber and you sort of be reeling right in at the right point. But it's fairly difficult, and then you can also gain chests, but if you go do that, you run the risk of losing the fish. It's very, very compelling just for a tiny little mini game that's within the game. So I find Stardew Valley to be something special. I think it's a neat way to take a very, very fun sort of light theme and delve into some very, very specific engine building techniques, and then also time management techniques, energy management techniques. I mean, after 2 a.m. you collapse and you just get taken back to your house and you lose money for having to pay for people to take you there and stuff. You've got to really manage your time per day very well, and you can't generally do everything that's available, which is an interesting mechanism, right? Like all these things that are available, you're not going to be able to do them all. So that's kind of an important part of that for me, and I really think it's an incredible way to look at games and say, while I could just make a game about farming because it would work well and it would do probably relatively, fine, I'm going to put an expansive story, a lot of NPCs with backstories of their own, and a lot of other mechanisms that are engaging into the game. And it ended up being one of the best-selling games of 2016, if I recall. So. It's a little more complicated than Animal Crossing for sure, but I think it definitely, for being on PC initially, a lot of people wanted that experience on the PC, so that might have been a big reason for the success. It's also an incredibly compelling game, and I really enjoy playing it. Just having a few minutes to get our video ready for this week, back with it again, I found myself thinking I could spend some more time with this. I still have it on the Nintendo Switch as well, and Rob says that he's played over 200 hours just on the PC, more on the Switch. I might have to catch up on the Switch and get some of that going. And so I would love to play the new multiplayer. I just saw that there's a mod, and they are actually incorporating it into the full game, so you're going to be able to play with lots of different friends. And that would be a fun way to play, is do some of that. So Rob says the storyline of some of the characters can get surprisingly dark and adult. I agree. Some of the storyline is definitely compelling at the level of, not light and fun and silly. Brad says the game looks and sounds cool, maybe a bit more complicated than Animal Crossing, but I'm too much of a fan of Animal Crossing to abandon it. You can have both. Why not both, right? Gary, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Ian Moss, hello, good to see you. He says John's gonna make me play the new multiplayer on a stream soon. I'd be happy to join you guys if you have space, by all means, and time. Brad says fishing minigames are great, though. I love the ones in Breath of Fire. I like fishing minigames in just about every game. It's silly, but I spent more time in things like EverQuest and World of Warcraft when I would play those games fishing than doing a lot of other things. I really enjoy digital fishing as well as real fishing. That's something I actually enjoy. I've got quite a bit of history in doing some fishing. So let's see here. Let's move on and let's get into, because we're almost 20 minutes in. We're gonna have to start getting into it. But let's take a look at our tabletop game, and this is from the same year, and this had a relatively similar amount of success. In my particular opinion, this was one of the best games of 2016. I think for me it was the best game of 2016, and that is Alexander Pfister's Great Western Trail, published by Stronghold and Eggert Spiel. It is probably my favorite game about, I would say favorite game that is this heavy, if that makes sense. I think it is probably one of the best engine building, sort of rondel building games that has ever been made. If you don't know about Great Western Trail, it is about the cattle drive from Texas, where I'm originally from, which I really, really enjoy that portion, to St. Louis, right? Missouri, I believe. And you're taking the cattle from Texas to St. Louis over and over again on this trail, and you're just trying to move them along. And so what you end up doing is you it's pretty incredible. You build locations of your own on the way that can help you do this better, to recruit more cattle or to get more cowboys, which help you get more cattle, or to get more engineers to move your train track up, because of the way that you score points is based on how far your shipping lines go. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us. So good to see you. So Rob says Stardew deals with some complex subjects in a really, really big way. I'm not going to go into all of them, but it does. I really agree with that. I think it's probably one of the better videos that you'll find. But again, Great Western Trail has this incredibly satisfying mechanism where it's sort of a deck builder, it's sort of an engine builder, it's sort of a worker placement game. It's got all these little pieces working together that are incredibly complex. But the overall thing, if somebody were to ask me what is it, it's a game about driving cattle from Texas to St. Louis. That's it. It's a game about a cattle drive. Which is, at its very base, you would seem like, okay, we're just moving cattle from one place to another. How do we do it? That's where it gets a little complicated, and this is the first of many segues, but Great Western Trail is an incredibly complex game. I probably couldn't explain to you how to play it, or if I explained it to you, it would be not very compelling. You'd be like, I don't want to play that game. That sounds very complicated and very unfun. I've taught it quite a few times. It might be a little bit better, but this is our first ever official segue. The way I learned how to play Great Western Trail is, as a matter of fact, our media for this week, and that is Paul Dean and it says Quentin Smith, but it's just Quinn's from what I know, and it's Shut Up and Sit Down. And Shut Up and Sit Down is an incredibly awesome and fun, compelling sort of how do I put this? It may be Kansas City. You might be right, Daniel. It's a comedy channel that is about board games and about the fun of board games, but also explaining them in a fun way. So if you've never watched the Great Western Trail video from Shut Up and Sit Down, that is the video that got me to actually look into this game heavily. Initially, I was a little bit worried that there was this sort of like, pretty consistently, I don't know, just when I saw a Western game, I'm from South Texas, so I kind of went, meh, all right, not for me. It's I'm from South Texas. I don't really know if the motif will be for me or not. And I watched their review about Great Western Trail, and they talked about what an odd and strange and weird and fun game it was. And so I really made sure to, from that point on, watch their channel, because Great Western Trail turned out to be one of my favorite games of all time. It's definitely in my top 5. It is a game I will sit down and play at any time. I will usually be happy to teach it. It is just really a compelling and fun experience. I enjoy playing it, and I think I've almost always played the A side. All the tiles that you can build have a B side, and I still need to play those. So it's incredibly fun, but Shut Up and Sit Down talks about it in a way that's so ultimately compelling that you really can't help but go, wow, I have to see what this is, because they talk about how weird it is. It is a weird mix of gameplay, and until you understand how the game works, it's really hard to grasp what they're talking about, but they do it in a compelling and funny way that's so hilarious, about talking about the cows and the trains, and says you can get these points up at the end. Are you a weird person who wants to get points with the train? Or you want to play with your trains for points? Okay, weird person. And I mean, it's just hilarious. Like, I don't know how, I'm definitely not doing their delivery any service, so just go watch Shut Up and Sit Down and don't listen to me. I guess I would say shut up, sit down, and go watch Shut Up and Sit Down, right? They have their own convention. This is not a small group. They're definitely well known, but in terms of Great Western Trail, it was such an amazing video that turned me on to that game. So I'm really, really happy to share that, and if nobody has watched them before, you should definitely watch them. They're incredibly talented. It's almost like actors. Mom said, is that like you played in middle school, Died of the Plague, like Oregon Trail? No, fortunately, this one is much more compelling in terms of, although I do like Oregon Trail, the initial, like the digital version on the computer is still one of my favorite games from my childhood. But no, this is you're moving cattle and you've got to purchase them, and you've got to have enough staff to run your cattle drive essentially. So you're trying to work with your cowboys or your engineers or your workers to build better buildings and things like that. It really is a tough game to describe. So Corey says, I listened to them before this show and before the first time to hear about Hanging On, the Life of Billy Kerr. They were hilarious. Yeah, so Hanging On, the Life of Billy Kerr, I will talk about that before we talk about the media this week. Is a game that Michael Fox, a friend of mine who I love very much and is a very good karaoke host, maybe one of the best karaoke hosts in the world, most likely. Michael Fox is definitely one of the most talented karaoke hosts in the world, in my opinion. He also is a super awesome game designer who put together a game about the life of Billy Kerr. It's called Holding On, the Life of Billy Kerr. Billy Kerr is a man who is, from what I recall, is in the last stage of his life, and he's in a hospital, and you're trying to both keep him alive and learn more about his life in these different phases of the game. And I haven't played it, so I can't speak to exactly how that's done, but the graphic design, the overall explanation of how things work, it seems incredible to me. And to me, the theme is just so amazing that Michael would do something like that and tackle something like an end of life thing. I think probably most people can identify with that. We all know someone who's sort of at that stage, and it's really hard to deal with. So I have a video or sort of a board game experience to sort of take that head on and deal with that fear is a beautiful thing. That's Michael Fox is an incredible dude for doing that, and it's a really, really that's one I can't wait to get a hold of and play, but just also to see in person. So, all right, this week's media that I'm very interested in, and we are doing just about perfect on time. But this week's media is Osprey Publishing's Gaslands and the word of mouth campaign and beyond since last year when they came out with the little booklet and a few templates and things like that on their website. Gaslands, if you don't know, I don't have any awesome stuff to show you. I have the book sitting over here. I haven't painted up my stuff. If you haven't looked at Gaslands, the way I heard about it was somebody talking about it on Facebook and showed a picture of a Hot Wheel that had weapons on it with painted up sort of post-apocalyptic deal. And I think I bought that. I looked at my Amazon stuff. It was a few months back. I picked that up. So, and by the way, this week we're drinking with our Good Vibes Only mug. This is one that my son picked out for me, Mr. Harrison, and I love it. So, yeah, the way that Gaslands works is it's just you use die-cast cars like Hot Wheels or Matchbox, modify them, make them look sort of post-apocalyptic. You can put weapons on them, and then it's an RPG-style tabletop, almost like X-Wing. Think of it that way. And you battle and race. So, almost Mario Kart for adults on the tabletop. And it's incredible. I've watched people play it. I can't wait to play it myself. I can tell that I'm going to love it. The biggest barrier of entry for me is that I want to make an incredible car before I play it. So I think I need to just get some cars together and just play it. So Daniel says, I define my life as before karaoke night in Pennsylvania and after. That comment speaks to Michael Fox's karaoke hosting talents. He is incredibly talented, and I have to mention that Philadelphia always has a very, 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 very special place in my heart. Not just because of the Philadelphia Eagles, but because of that night and that karaoke experience with some amazing folks, including Daniel and Michael Fox himself. So, I think that the Osprey Publishing Gaslands, I didn't see any real major marketing push behind it by the publisher. I didn't see a ton of content coming out other than people talking about it on Facebook, which is what got me to look at it. So I picked up the book, and I have since watched it just grow massively, both on Facebook. There's groups of Facebook. One I just joined has thousands of members talking about the game and sharing their cars and all those sorts of things. So let's see here. Corey says, super compelling. My mom just retired as a nurse in those situations, and I need to get to play with her. That would be, I would love to play it with a medical professional and hear their thoughts on the game as well. That would be a really compelling experience. Hi Michael, good to see you. Let's see here. Gil says Gaslands is too much work for me. I'm too lazy. I think that might be why I haven't played yet. I really want to paint these cars up, but I haven't even painted all the guitars that I need to, which is something we're going to be doing soon. This week, as a matter of fact. I also wanted to mention that a fun thing that I may start doing is a creative day. I have to pick a day of the week, but a creative day where you'll actually see me either prototyping over here on this other table I have, or painting minis, or doing something that's super creative in nature, and that's probably what I'll be doing this maybe Thursday. I don't know. We're gonna have to. Thursday's probably a bad day for it. Maybe Wednesdays. I don't know. We're gonna pick a day, and we're gonna try and do a creative stream as well, where you don't see my mug. You just see us doing something fun or working on something. So let's see. Gaslands word of mouth, I think, essentially was what made the success of this game. I don't know the sales numbers, but I do know that the talk about it is so incredible, and the amount of people selling third-party parts for it and things like that are really, really growing exponentially. So I think that's something to be very, very aware of as a publisher and look out for. Is if you can organically get some fans to start talking about your product and show it off because it is good and it's compelling, then that is often more valuable than any marketing dollar you can spend. So make a fantastic product, and a lot of times it'll sort of start to market itself through just being innovative and new and a fun way to do things. You also are doing something really incredible here, which is giving people a way to maybe take a toy that's been sitting in an attic or a garage and bring new life to it through an adult game system. And a lot of us are collectors, so we keep stuff for a long time. So it's a really, really clever way to do things. Osprey actually has made a whole. I was doing my research before the show, and I realized Osprey's made an entire model out of this, right? Like that's what they do. They essentially say, here is a system. You use your miniatures, or you use this thing and turn it into a miniature and paint it up. So I think that's a really clever thing, and I like the affordable nature of what they're doing there. Like that's so cool to just say like, hey, you already have a bunch of miniatures. Here's a way to use a lot of them. You can mix your Space Marines from this with your Knights from this, and here's why they're clashing, and here's a system that does that, and it gives you some canon or lore around it. So I really like the adaptability of all their different books. I'm going to look into them more. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. Y'all, I really appreciate you joining. Coffee was delicious. The heat is unbearable. I don't know if you noticed. I've got a fan running and an AC over here. It's a little better today, but it was almost 100 degrees here even in Rhode Island yesterday, which is insanity. I hope everyone is staying cool where you are. Thank you, Michael. He says, good choice on the mug. Gil says, Jamie from Secret Cabal is big on Secret Cabal. Sorry, is it Cabal or Cabal? I think it's Secret Cabal. Is big on Gaslands. Yeah, I saw John Gilmore and Ian Moss playing with some friends of theirs on stream the other day, and God, it made me just really want to bust out some cars and get to painting and playing. It really, really is an incredible looking game. So. Yeah, thank you, Daniel. You definitely toasted pina colada to me in Florida. I appreciate it. I will not be at Dice Tower Con. Gen Con is looking like a probably no, but we're definitely at PAX Unplugged. I'm definitely at Kineticon at CT Fig. I will be judging there. Steve O'Tours will be showing off Son of a Bee, which is a really, really cool, fun game that's coming along. I'm loving the way that one's going. And everything is just rolling along great. So thank you guys, and y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye-bye.